when we talk of migration, we must also appreciate a number of concepts that are involved in there. So I would like to go through a number of basic concepts, and then after that have a look at the frameworks that are governing migration within the Common Market Protocol in the East African community, and of course also understanding the challenges of the common market, and of course conclusion and the recommendation. So the very first concept that comes to head when somebody talks of migration is the concept of migration itself. What do we mean when we say migration? So we say migration generally is the movement of persons, whether within or outside their countries. And of course, migration can be voluntary or involuntary. So those who move voluntary will be moving for a number of reasons. Could be maybe to get work or to be to establish themselves in a particular country, and so forth and so on. But there is also a very important concept which is important to understand. It is called immigration. So immigration, this is when other nationalities are moving to a particular country. And of course, if other nationalities are moving in, then that we call immigration. But if they are moving out of the country, or citizens are moving out of their own country, that is normally called emigration. So in the East African community, we have a number of frameworks that are governing migration within the community itself. And of course, you cannot say anything without starting with the treaty for the establishment of the East African community, the protocol for the common market, and of course, their annexures thereto. These are governing migration within the common market itself. So it is important to understand that within the East African community, persons can move. Okay. So, thank you, Dr. Yahya. So, these are the framework that govern migration within the East African common market. And of course, these are the basic concepts which we have already talked about. And now, what's happening? Okay, so in terms of understanding the common market or the East African common market, we should always understand that the East African common market is among the stages of regional integration in the East African community. The very first stage is called customs union, then common market, monetary union, and ultimately political federation. So common market is one of the stages that is envisaged within the East African community. Now, with the common market itself, citizens are permitted to be moving around because of the four markets that the common market intends to achieve. So the East African common market intends to ensure that there is a free movement of capital, there is a free movement of labor, there is a free movement of goods, and of course, services as well. So when you look at these movements, you realize that when we talk of labor, citizens are permitted to be moving within East Africa for major two purposes. They can move for purposes of being employed, or they can move for purposes of employing themselves. And this is really very important because the movement within the common market allows citizens of the partner states to either move and take jobs within the community or establish themselves within the community by starting different businesses. Of course, that urge to move people is contained within the principles of the East African community themselves. And of course, the best principle which cover individual is called people-centered and market-driven economy. So this is the principle which allows peoples within the East African community to move, get employed, or employ themselves within the East African community. However, one would always note that this has not always been easy. There are a number of challenges that are facing the community towards achieving that goal. So, in short, we can always say that the migration phenomenon within the common market in East African community is covered in this scenario. So it is all about people migrating for purposes of development and at the same time trying to avoid the security risks that these people may encounter. All right, so we have had a number of challenges within the common market itself and the migration of people. For example, there are challenges of lack of awareness of the opportunities that are there in the East African community. As a result, most people do not get an opportunity to explore and use the opportunities. There is also a challenge of not having or using national IDs to allow movement of people within the community, although some few countries within the community have started to do that, but not all countries have joined hands. Migration law, labor laws are also not well harmonized or fully harmonized within the community, the result of which some people who want to move around face difficulties. We also have high costs of transport within the community. There are issues of delaying the adoption of a common mechanism within the community to deal with refugees matter. For purpose of noting, one should know that the East African community has a large population of refugees within itself. And all those, almost 95% of the refugees in the East African community are produced from within. And therefore, if the community has a common mechanism to deal with this matter, it may assist in the free movement within the community itself. So we have issues of youth unemployment, we have issues of misunderstandings and sometimes failure to timely come up with common mechanisms to address common challenges. And a good example is during COVID-19, where each country had its own way to deal with that, whereas a common mechanism could have helped. Those who remember those bad days, each East African country was not permitting anybody to move across, and that was not very good for the movement and migration within the community. Again, there is also insufficient level of permitting students' mobility within the community. So other communities have started to do this, where students would go to one universities, get credits, and those credits are actually recognized in their home universities. But now that part is also not very well dealt with within the community. So by way of concluding, I would like to say that the future of the East African community looks really very bright as its market keeps growing with the coming of Somalia on board. And of course, you know, the coming of Somalia brings into the community the brilliant business persons whom the East African community needed the most. However, we also have a bit of things that we need to do to ensure that number of challenges identified are really being solved. For example, we need to work more on raising awareness of the people to be able to use the opportunities that are there within the East African community. we also need to ensure that countries that have not yet started using national IDs or permitting their citizens to use national IDs as travel document within the community do so. And indeed, migration labor laws needs to be harmonized. And lastly, we need to maximize human capitals in order to create more employment opportunities for the youth within the community. We all know when we have a large number of young people without employment, they tend to become impatient, and therefore troubles can occur in a particular country. We all know what is going on in Kenya now, and therefore we really need to address issues relating to youth unemployment within the community and movement or mobility within the common market can offer a better alternative for the youth and get this employment done. So I thank you so much for your attention, and I'll be happy to receive questions if they are there.